An insider has dropped a bombshell report on the New York Islanders' search for the next president of the franchise, and a lot of Islander fans are going to be frustrated at this, and this likely means the Islanders' search for the next president, and likely GM as well, is coming to a close. So we're going to break it all down on this episode of Islanders Digest, but first, we noticed that 80% of you who've watched these videos are not yet subscribed to the channel, so if you're an Islander fan, you want more Islanders content just like this, what are you waiting for? It's free. Subscribe to the channel. Now let's get right into this report from Elliotte Friedman. The Islanders have requested permission to speak to Brendan Shanahan, and the Maple Leafs have granted it. What this means, first of all, if you are a Maple Leafs fan watching this whole situation unfold, congratulations, Shanahan is no longer going to be the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. This hasn't been officially confirmed. It's likely going to be confirmed tomorrow, as we're going to break down in a little bit in this video. But you would not be letting the Islanders speak to Shanahan if you wanted to keep him around. So it's very clear that Shanahan, the Shanahan plan, is over for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan watching this, you should be happy about that. And if you're an Islander fan, let me know in the comments right now if you're concerned about this. Bringing in Shanahan, as we just talked about, almost all Maple Leafs fans are celebrating that he is no longer going to be with the team. So there definitely is some reasons for concern. We're going to break down what this means for the Islanders in just a bit. I definitely think there are some positives to bringing in Shanahan. I'm being glass half full here. Ideally, I don't think I would want the Islanders to bring in Shanahan, but as we're going to talk about in a little bit, if Shanahan wants this job, it is almost definitely going to be his. So at this point, this is more me almost accepting this is going to be the situation and kind of looking at the positives, because there are positives. Now, as I talked about just a bit ago, Shanahan is officially meeting with the Maple Leafs Sports and Entertainment on Thursday, which is tomorrow, where I have to assume he's going to be officially let go, or as it seems to always be worded in the NHL, they're going to mutually agree to part ways. We both know this is basically him getting fired, except his contract is ending. And so where this is really important for the Islanders, though, just beyond that term they always seem to use, is the Islanders can make a decision on Shanahan likely as soon as tomorrow, because as soon as the Maple Leafs officially let him go on Thursday, which is almost definitely what this meeting is going to be, the Islanders can hire him as the president of hockey ops, as a lot of people are expecting them to do. Again, let me know in the comments what you think about that. I think there are a lot of different opinions on bringing in Shanahan. As we talked about a little bit, Shanahan has done a lot of good for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I do want to point that out really quickly before we get into this. Sure, he has really struggled to bring his team past the second round. In the 9 years he has been with the Toronto Maple Leafs, they've only made it to the second round twice, and both times they were eliminated. That's really not what the Islanders are looking for. But then at the same time, at least the fans, what they're looking for, I think the ownership really wants somebody who's been there and done this before. But at the same time, one thing you got to think about with this Maple Leafs, this is a team that's been dominant in the regular season every single year. There's almost a guarantee you're going to get playoffs at the start of the season as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. And that's something Islander fans really haven't had, even when the Islanders were winning rounds in the playoffs, even when they almost won the Stanley Cup back in the bubble, and then the next year when they almost won the Cup again, losing in Game 7 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was a team that really struggled to make the playoffs, especially the first year. It looked like they weren't going to make the playoffs. And then the second year in the season where you were only playing the teams in the division, the Islanders were still all the way in third place and really did not have a dominant performance in either of those years. So this is a team where perhaps it's a different situation and Shanahan can really shine. Islander fans have been calling for a long time that we want more offense. That's Shanahan loves a fast-paced game. We see what he built with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, granted, it didn't work, and that is something you definitely have to be concerned about. And I'm definitely questioning how eager the Islanders are to bring in a guy who's failed without really proving he's going to do everything different. As Stefan Rosser writes right here, and as he wrote in his article, and I frankly completely agree, it seems like this is Shanahan's job, if he wants it, to be the president of hockey operations for the New York Islanders. Also noting, even though it's not really important, the Seattle Kraken have permission from Toronto to interview New York Islanders former head coach Lane Lambert. Good luck with that. Really interesting that they let their coach go and now they're going to be interviewing Lane Lambert. Probably not the best idea, honestly. Really doesn't matter in terms of the Islanders. They were never going to bring him back anyway. We saw how well that worked in New York. The big thing here is just more one for Toronto. It seems like they're really cleaning house, which also is going to bring up if the Islanders do bring in Shanahan, because as we've said, it seems like it is going to be his job if he wants it. And considering they're agreeing to talk to him so quickly, it sounds like he does want it. Is this going to be a situation where he can really bring in a couple other people from Toronto, which could actually be good for the Islanders? I know there is a lot of you don't want anything that's touched the Maple Leafs, but let's be honest, the Maple Leafs have drafted better than the New York Islanders in recent years. So if they're really cleaning house and kind of getting rid of a couple of these figures as they try to go in a new direction, perhaps that could be a situation where Shanahan can really help and bring some of those people to the Islanders. And this is something where I'm actually going to give Shanahan a lot of credit, especially with the Islanders making a GM and president decision. Shanahan has a lot of value in the sense where he's respected in the hockey community. Yes, this Maple Leafs team did not work, but in terms of getting top tier people to work for him and really having a good staff, I mean, Toronto Maple Leafs from top to bottom are a well run organization. Yes, the players can kind of be hit or miss, especially when it comes to the playoffs. But when you're talking about the actual personnel, when it comes to like the scouts, head of scouting, when it comes to the minor league team and how well the Marlies run compared to the Bridgeport Islanders, there's a lot of value Shanahan can bring, especially if his president of hockey operations job is more focused on the building up of the rest of the organization. And it's a situation where the GM is going to have control of the hockey decisions for the New York Islanders, while Shanahan really takes care of the rest. I think that can really work, especially when we're talking about a new candidate, not a new candidate in sense of the Islander search, but a new GM candidate in the sense he hasn't done it in Mathew Darsh. Islanders fans, as I've seen in the comments, let me know who your favorite candidate is to be the GM of the New York Islanders. Let me know both. Who do you want as president? Who do you want as GM? So at this point, it seems like there is going to be a separation of church and state. I believe that initial report, as we've spoken about recently, that there was going to be one man for the entire job. That was Ken Holland. And when he did not want the job, that's when the Islanders went in this other direction. Now that we kind of know there's going to be two positions, it could make a lot of sense to bring Shanahan in, especially if the Islanders are leaning towards Darsh, because this is a GM who's doing it for his first time. If we're in an organization like the Islanders where so much needs to be done, I mean, you look, it really has to be revamped from top to bottom. In addition to the roster really needs some major changes, it could be a lot for a new GM like Darsh to do. So perhaps it makes sense to bring in a Shanahan to take care of the more hockey operation stuff, and then really have Darsh focus on building the roster of the New York Islanders. Again, it could also be Bergevin, and there's also been talk on whether or not, if Shanahan does not want this job, which we do have to talk about, there's a chance that perhaps he just wants to take a step back after this Maple Leafs defeat. But honestly, I think after how all this went, I think he's probably hungry to kind of get a new project to work on. I don't see Shanahan not being interested in this job, so I'm kind of talking at assuming that as of tomorrow, we're probably going to get the official announcement that he is the president of the New York Islanders. And hopefully these are still the two candidates. As I've said, my main concern with Shanahan is I really don't want him to be too involved with hockey decisions. I want this to be a situation where one of these GMs are brought in and they have control to do what they need. But really quickly, what I was talking about here with Arthur Staples reports, there's talk that if Shanahan is not the man, it could perhaps be a Bergevin president Darsh situation as a GM, which I would actually prefer. I don't think we're going to get that at this point, especially now that the Islanders have permission to talk to Shanahan. But I think that's worth noting. And the other thing in this Arthur Staple tweet, and yes, a lot of these tweets have been a bit of speculation here and there. It seems like no one really knows exactly what's going on with this search. But this idea of co-GMs, it was also brought up on the 32 Thoughts podcast. And I have to say, this is a terrible idea. I don't think there's any confirmation that the Islanders actually are considering co-GMs. It's been tried a couple times in the NHL, and it's been a disaster every single time. And it's kind of what I'm getting to at the end of this conversation about Shanahan and having a separation between the president and the GM. Whatever the Islanders do, there has to be a clear number one person in charge of the Islanders roster. A co-GM situation between Bergevin and Darsh would be an absolute disaster. But I also think it's going to be a really messy situation if there's a case where a guy like Darsh or Bergevin cannot make the moves they want to make without the approval of Shanahan. And there's like a messy sense of who's in charge when it comes to trades and things like that. And drafting, especially with the Islanders having a first overall pick, that is also what we don't want to see. And it's actually where the issues came with the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you actually look at what kind of went wrong, especially with this Mitch Marner situation, as we are also looking to hopefully capitalize on that situation. I don't think it's very likely Mitch Marner comes to the Islanders, but there is a possibility. But the issue where the Maple Leafs are losing Mitch Marner really comes with Shanahan not allowing GMs to trade him when they thought it made sense. A disconnect between the GM and the president. That is the worst case scenario for the Islanders, which is why I really hope if this is a situation where Shanahan is coming in as a president, especially considering he has not been involved in interviewing the GM candidates that they seem to be moving forward with. I really hope this is a situation where Shanahan will have power when it comes to building up the organization, but is not necessarily going to be telling the GM what to do, because I don't think it's going to work. Still, even saying that out loud, that could get a little messy. It'll be interesting to see what the Islanders end up doing, and then we can really judge whether or not they made the right decision. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. Do you want Shanahan to be the president of the New York Islanders? As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. This is Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.